Welcome to Tammy Nation. Let's go.
From 9 to 5, been biting my tongue for all this time. Won't let anyone cut me short. I was thinking this was the way to go, and you put up your puppet show. I say cheers to life. No, I'll be no good man. Get me alone. I'm on the show. I'm telling you, it's my time to rise up. Live the life I'm proud of. No, you better go home.
Good Wednesday afternoon, everybody. Good to see you guys here. Hey, Kim, good to have you here. So overall, how's everybody feeling? I know that I'm exhausted, but it's been a good ride so far this afternoon with the House Speaker vote. Of course, you probably heard that Mike Johnson did get elected as House Speaker, and we will get into that, of course, but I want to also go into who exactly Mike Johnson is, because as of last night, when it came down late that he did get the designated vote behind the scenes, that people are like, who is this guy? Where is he from? I haven't heard about him or of him. And the more I dug and the more I found out, the more that I had a smile on my face. And after watching his speech today and finding more about him, I'm very content and very happy. And I feel like saying, you know what? Shame on me for not knowing who this man was or is. And I think the lesson in all of this, after all the roller coaster rides we've been through over almost 3 weeks to do this, it just behooves us to pay attention to who's doing what and who they are in our government. Because in my opinion, this guy is like, I'm going to say, the secret weapon. And I don't think there could have been pretty much a better choice, but that is my opinion, and it is waiting to be seen yet. It just happened. So, but I'm very optimistic and hopeful. And as of last night, hey, Redhausen, good to see you. And as of last night, as soon as I got off the air, and I was getting ready for bed and stuff, the next thing I know is that this happened and this all broke. So like 1 or 2 in the morning, I wake up and I start saving videos and comments and all that's going on, because I had to go to work today and do some things, and I have to go to work again later on this evening. So I'm like trying to fit all this in and organize it. And it has been one heck of a roller coaster ride, but I'm telling you what, it feels good. So to get on with it, okay, Redhausen, that's awesome. Just take me along while you do things around the house. Just don't stub your toe or hurt yourself while you're paying attention. So last night, the mood on the House floor, the first video that I ran across was after this came down that Mike Johnson did win the designated nomination for the Speaker, is the mood. They showed everybody in the House, which I thought was strange. Hey, Gigs, good to see you. Thank you. It's good to see you, girl. So actually what happened was all the people gathered around Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson went up to the podium, and guess what his first act as before the vote went to the floor today was to have everybody bow their head in prayer to give thanks to the Father God Almighty. That was his first act. And I thought, wow, here we go. And everybody, the mood was great. Everybody was happy. And then even when the House floor opened today, this morning, and they started pouring in, there were handshakes going on, smiles, pats on the back. And you could just, even though you couldn't be there watching it, the mood was so elevated. And I thought, wow, what is going on? Because it was a complete different thing than we've seen in the last 3 weeks, right? It's so exciting. Get ready for the new Creed music. That's right. Music is back, right, Garrett? Anyhow, so it was really good. And this is the other thing. Last night, McCarthy's Speaker of the House nameplate was not off his office. They took a picture of it. However, another telling sign was this morning that his nameplate was off, Speaker of the House, office door. So last night they showed a picture of it on there. This morning, before they even did the floor vote, that was taken down. So I think that was another telltale sign. But last night it was 12 hours of voting, you guys, and he won the speaker designee. He had 128 votes last night. And actually, after he did get the speaker designee, he garnered more votes, because what he did is he went back to some people that weren't voting for him and had conversations with them and stuff. And then they came out this morning before they even did the vote on the House floor stating, hey, after our conversation with him, we're flipping our vote. We're going to go ahead and vote for him again. We're going to go vote for him, not again, but vote for him. Also, Trump headed to court today again. Obviously, he's doing that every day, but he came out about Mike Johnson before he entered the courtroom, and he was saying that he is smart, he is sharp. I think he's going to make a fantastic speaker. We will see. You let me know when I get out of here in a couple of hours. So, like I said, Trump was all about that. And he said, I would strongly suggest that the Republicans get behind the lead nominee. And so they apparently did that. So, like I said, I was really impressed with that. I was impressed that he said, bow your head and pray to the God Almighty. That was pretty amazing too. So before we get into more details about who he is and stuff and how this happened, we have to remember that this is not a normal process. Normally, this takes about a year when there's a new speaker or somebody that's running, because what they do is they go and take a year to court different people, talk with different people to garner votes before they actually decide to run or become the nominee or even risk it. And this process, you look at all the people we had Scalise, right? And then we had Jordan, and then we had Emmer. And now the next thing you know, within 24 hours, we've got Johnson in here. So this is not a normal process. Basically, this is unprecedented territory, first time ever. The speed is crazy, because when you look at the power that the Speaker of the House has, and he could possibly be president if something, God forbid, would happen, but that's his or her job. So for them to fly through all those people like that, when there's a huge responsibility possibly laying on the table as the president or acting president, that's insanity to me. Also, you have to remember that it is not the norm to have these kind of speaker votes the way they did, on and off, all behind the scenes, and then file through them and then say they have somebody and then they don't. And then also remember that rule to vacate is still active. So that means down the road, if they can get enough people together, they could possibly do the same thing to him that they did to McCarthy. But let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay. But we just have to keep that in the back of our mind. Yes, we should celebrate. Yes, this guy seems good. As I talked to you about him, I think that you're going to like him too as well. But, there's a lot of things that could still happen because they haven't had time, nor have they changed the rule to vacate. So that's pretty interesting, because one of the big things that is coming out, and I'm going to talk about and read an article, is about McCarthy and what he was doing behind the scenes with all this going on and what the holdup is. And I'm going to read through the article in a moment, but also know that if you don't catch what I read or you need to go, that I put it on my community page, and it's Matt Gaetz. He's on Steve Bannon today, and he was talking exactly about and breaking down what was going on behind the scenes and what McCarthy was doing. And remember, we were talking about McCarthy did not want to give up that seat, that he was still saying, look at what could be happening. If you still had me, we'd get a lot more done, blah, 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 blah. But it'll give you great insight to it. And this article is amazing too. So, hey, Zoe Bonnie, good to see you. Yes, definitely pray. We pray. You know what I mean? It is, I've been praying too. And, God is good all the time. And like I said, so let's get into this. So Johnson comes from Shreveport, Louisiana. Actually, it's the fifth poorest district. And the word is inside with some of these other Republicans and even the Dems. They're not happy because he hasn't been able to raise a whole lot of money, because the district he comes from is very poor. But they're saying that now that he's elected, that a lot more people will get behind him for the fundraising part of it. So, that's pretty interesting as well. Also, what came out as well is McCarthy wants to run in 2 years for governor of Florida. And so he didn't want to give up power. He did not want to get this up. He wants to keep a name for himself because he wants to run for governor of Florida in 2 years in 26. And then they approached Matt Gaetz about this and said, this is why you're trying to dethrone McCarthy. You guys got, animosity back and forth. And Gaetz said, no, I want nothing to do with running for governor. He said, I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm here, I'm content, and he has every intention on doing the best that he can do in his position for we the American people. And this was a CBS News interview. So so who is Mike Johnson? Basically, he this is why I say that he's like the secret weapon. If you do not recall, which a lot of people don't, he defended Mr. T in 2019 and 2020. He was on his defense team during the impeachments and also the contesting of the 2020 results. So there's a lot of videos on him that you can look up and you can find out exactly who he is and what he represents and what his standards are. He's very conservative. He is a constitutional attorney that members of Congress really like him because of his temperament. They came out and said this guy does not lose his cool, that he's willing to listen to everybody and he's willing to do what's best for the American people, but also being able to compromise, but not compromise to the point that, we are always suffering, which is so many people have made us suffer. Basically, he has been very selective, and you're going to like this, in supporting funding for Ukraine, that basically he only voted in favor of the initial funding bill. That is all he was in favor for, was the initial funding bill for Ukraine. Also, he backed Trump in his travel bans on countries that were considered to be hotbeds of the T-word group. And also in 2022, he introduced the Stop the Sexualization of Children Act, and that was aimed at preventing federally funded institutions from promoting sex and transgenderization of children. So right there, those few little boom, boom, booms, that's pretty amazing. And how refreshing is it? I had a sense of relief and a sigh of relief when I started, like I said, investigating who this man was. And there's video out there, and actually the Gateway Pundit has an amazing article on him. And if you scroll down, there's little clips of him in action, and it'll remind us exactly who he is, what he did, and what he stands for. So I was very impressed with that. Also people were upset because last night when he was at the podium after he got nominated, and the whole group was standing around to them and they went to pray and stuff, there was a journalist that asked Mr. Johnson, and they said to him, weren't you the one that led the efforts to overturn the 2020 results? And many members in Congress just booed and said, hey, shut up and leave. They all stood behind him. And I liked, he just kept his cool when she said that. And he just looked at her and the other people and he said, next question. So I thought, yay, boots to them, because we know that overturn word is a falsehood and a lie. It wasn't what they weren't trying to overturn. They were trying to just get the results out there. Take a look at them, this and that. That's why Trump's facing all this in Georgia and stuff. They say the phone call. It's all lies, lies, lies. So now that we know kind of a little basis of what Mike Johnson stands for, we know what can start the ball rolling. Exposure, subpoenas, the J6 tapes, it goes on and on and on, because he is very upset with the DOJ when it comes to everything that's going on. Matt Gaetz said, basically, he really believes in the Constitution. He is a constitutional lawyer. So Matt Gaetz says he has the wherewithal, he has the stamina, and he has the passion to get the wrongs righted and take care of business without delays. And I thought that was amazing. Now, the speech that he gave after he won, won the bid for the speaker seat. You know, what I liked about this speech, because I watched Hakeem Jeffries' speech as well. And Hakeem Jeffries, once again, was simply talking about money here and people there. And he wanted to bring up the 2020 stuff and all the bad things. So a lot of the members in the Senate there, Congress there, were booing that, because his, once again, even though it was just a speech after he had lost, it was all the negativity. And then he's trying to say that because of the Democrats, you know, we've stopped this, and we are for we the people. So basically everything he was saying, it just made my skin crawl, because it was blatant lies out of his mouth. It was terrible. So then Mike Johnson gets up there and he starts giving his speech. And I thought it was pretty interesting, because he has been in the House since 2017. He said his mom gave birth to him at the age of 17, that he comes from 4 kids in the family. His dad was a firefighter, and at 12 years old, that his father unfortunately had major injuries from an explosion that happened. And he said his father always wanted to see him in Congress and elected to Congress, and that he graduated, obviously went to college and stuff, and that's kind of unheard from the area that he's in. But the sad thing is, he said that 3 days before he got elected into Congress, he lost his dad to cancer. So I thought that was very, very sad. It was very emotional. It was personal. It was all American. He was saying that a strong America is good for the entire world. He said that we are the beacon of freedom, and that we've only 247 years in. We don't know how long it's going to last, but we want to keep that lasting and make America great for every single person. Basically, he also said that scripture is clear. He said God raises up those in authority. Each one of us have a huge responsibility to the people of the people of our country and of the world that desperately need it, that we need to remember our creed, and the nation needs strong leadership. And that's so true. And he said and he didn't just say one side or just a couple people. He said every single one of us have the ability and the responsibility and the authority to be what we should be for this country and for the world. And then he read over the different creed things, the core principles, like free markets, limited government, the rule of law, individual freedoms, as he was speaking about. He said these are the creed of the core principles that we have, that me as a conservative, and what we are going to base this stuff on is peace and strength, peace through strength, actually, human dignity, and fiscal responsibility. And we can all agree on the fiscal responsibility, because we know that right now we are 36 trillion in debt. And he said by the time that he was finished with his acceptance speech, or his whatever that it's technically called, is that we would be 20 million more in debt before he was finished. And he said we cannot continue on this, that we are going to collapse. He said immediately one of the first things that they are going to do is form a bipartisan debt commission to start working immediately to fix this. He said because it's not sustainable. He also is I think he gave another speech outside that I only caught part of, but their first order of business, he said, is to work on something for Israel. He said because that's way past due, the aid to Israel. He said also he wants to fix the broken border. And he said he talked about the increase in food and goods, that they've increased 17%, and that they need to work on relief for we the American people. So these are all the things that he came out with his speech, and I was really impressed with it. And it's like, it's been a long time since anybody has really said anything that's rung the bell of happiness for we the American people and our freedoms and liberties here in America, and to work and keep us safe. And actually he got some kind of boos and some kind of mumblings when he was talking about things. And when Elise, I think it was Elise, nominated him or talked about him, she got a lot as well from the other side. So they were not happy. So he said that his office is going to be decentralizing the power here. He said, my office is going to be about trust, transparency, and that we are going to have accountability. And how about that? You guys, all of us have been saying for years, how come nobody's being held accountable? We need to have accountability. So that is one big word that he used. And like I said, this is just the speech. This is just the start, but it's very hopeful. I'm very hopeful. I'm very happy. We will wait and see what happens, of course, but it is very optimistic, and he is a godly driven man. So, hopefully everything goes well, and we will see as it starts moving along. He said that the people's house basically is back in business, that the message to all the enemies out there of our freedom and freedom in general, he said through adversity and what we've been through, you may have been watching and laughing and thinking that we were stumbling along, but basically adversity has made us stronger, and the people's house is back in business. So he got a lot of cheers and stuff for that. And Harvest Mary Moon, I did not hear him talk about anything about the J6 tapes. It was the border aid to Israel, taking care of us, and basically forming that bipartisan debt commission to get the debt down and work on spending and everything like that. So it was really cool. Judge passed. Yeah, Boo Boo. I've got the article on that coming down about Mr. T. I know. Mr. T supposedly broke the gag order again. That is just breaking, but I'm going to get to that, of course. Yeah. So anyways, as soon as Creed announces a tour, get the tickets at Tammy Garrett. Yeah, right. Yeah, instead of talking about the FAIA, I agree with you. Instead of talking, just release them. But like I said, you guys, this has just started. So we are hopeful and optimistic because, subpoenas. Let's start serving up subpoenas. Let's do the accountability. I mean, look at the whole spectrum. It's almost like a big deck of cards, and you could shoot those subpoenas out. You get one, you get one, you get one. I mean, it could be pretty amazing. So we're just going to have to stay hopeful about it and pray about it and all that kind of stuff. So let me see. And then he ended it with saying, God bless you and God bless America. He says he believes in his heart the best is yet to come. So once again, it's a man that's talking about America, pro-God, pro feeling it in his heart and having some kind of feeling and emotion instead of being glaze-eyed or being selfish. And there were a lot of interviews that came in through C-SPAN as well, why the House was in recess and they were taking care of business a couple things after he got voted in. And it was different people that called in from his Shreveport, Louisiana location that have known him or worked with him or whatever. And they all said, listen, this guy tells the truth. He said, this guy's honest, this guy is humble, and it goes on and on. So, of course, the people they put through that called in were very optimistic and very complimentary to him as well. But like I said, you guys, he came out of nowhere. Like, how did we not know him? Right? So then you start looking him up and you think, oh, my gosh. That's right. He was really good in what he did with in 2019 and 2020. He's basically was like a bulldog. So hopefully we'll see. Let me see. What else was on there? Oh, yeah. And I was going to say, even though it took 3 weeks to get here, I'm so thankful now on the other side of it, because I was really worried about Emmers, because Emmers was basically McCarthy 2.0. And they both are kind of buddies in together with the wheelings and dealings that they've done. So let's get to this. To Matt Gaetz on Steve Bannon's War Room. So this is and Matt Gaetz. We'll start with this. Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz said to everyone who said I didn't have a plan, this guy. And he's talking about Johnson after he won the GOP conference, because remember, all the left and all the people and some of the rhinos were coming out and saying, hey, Matt Gaetz doesn't even have a plan. So where are we now? And he said, this was his comment to everyone who said I didn't have a plan. This guy's been sitting next to me for 7 years on the House Judiciary Committee. I hope my mentorship has run off or rubbed off on him. So basically, he called Johnson a transformational leader who was broadly respected in the caucus. He said, we adore him, and I think he's going to do a great job for the country and for the right reasons. He said, Mike Johnson is not bought and paid for. Mike Johnson does what is right. So that's very refreshing. He said everything that we've went through, and another representative, Burchett, as well, said, agreed with Gaetz and said everything that we went through with McCarthy and everything people have been saying about us, it was absolutely worth it to get to this end game here, right? So that was pretty intense as well. So as Matt Gaetz starts going on to Steve Bannon's War Room today on Real America Voice, this was very interesting. So this is the synopsis of Matt Gaetz, and what he said was going on behind the scenes, the background activity, that Kevin McCarthy was actually working to sabotage the candidates who are running to replace him. So he says, Matt Gaetz says this, we get that through the gestation system early yesterday. So as Emmer was withdrawing, Martha Molinaro, a moderate New York freshman Republican, stood up at the microphone and said, well, instead of restarting this process and having a candidate forum and sending everybody home for a good cry, let's just take a non-binding poll on where people would be on the person who came in second to Tom Emmer. And that guy was Mike Johnson. And Elise Stefanik said, well, that's against the rules. The rules don't contemplate it. We can't do that. So Matt Gaetz says brilliantly, Mark Molinaro says that I move for a unanimous consent that the rules be waived and we take a poll on whether or not Mike Johnson could be our speaker nominee. And he said, guess who objects that unanimous consent request? Guess who is the one person that said no and objected to it? Kevin McCarthy. So he says Kevin McCarthy stands up and says, I object to doing a roll call on Mike Johnson. And he said Mike Johnson was exasperated. All the times Mike Johnson had voted for McCarthy, had carried his water. He said maybe even voted for some bills he didn't like because he was working toward the Republican conference's stated objectives under McCarthy. And here was the thing. It showed everyone that it was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Scalise. He said it was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Jim Jordan. It was McCarthy working to knife everyone, and he hadn't figured out yet a way to knife Mike Johnson. And so he was worried that there was going to be this great unifying moment, and he said he scuttled the unifying moment. So he said, because this is Matt Gaetz, this is what happened last night. So because of McCarthy's objection, he says we have to have this 3-hour delay and candidates announce again, have another forum, and guess what happens during that delay? Steve Patrick Mahenry runs to the House floor, opens it up out of recess, and then adjourns it till noon today. And he says, now, why would he do that? Well, because they were setting up a play to block Mike Johnson and write in votes in the intra-conference process for Kevin McCarthy. He said they were promising people hearings on their favorite legislation, the passage of bills. And he said, I heard people promised, oh, maybe you'll get a chairmanship. And the play was for McCarthy to return as speaker and then Jim Jordan to be the deputy speaker in some sort of way. And he said that that would have been debasing to Jordan, somebody I have a great deal, and I would have been empowering to McCarthy. Okay. He said, so Garrett Graves and all these people are working to try to effectuate this return of McCarthy. And they're telling us they're going to be 100 votes for McCarthy on the write-in. And he said, you know how many there ended up being? 33 on the first write-in. He said, so they flame out terribly. And he says, Mike Johnson's gaining momentum. I swear, this is like a dang football game. Ultimately, he said, McCarthy ends up getting 43 to vote for him in a secret ballot. He said, but then Mike Johnson gets the majority. And this continues. This is Matt Gaetz's rehashing of last night's event. He said then, and Mike Johnson says, you know what I want? I want a roll call so that those 43 would have to announce themselves as being for a candidate who wasn't even running instead of unifying force like Mike Johnson. He says, and when we called for a roll call, he goes, do you know how many people voted for Kevin McCarthy? He said 0. Nada, nil. He said, so he went from promising 100 votes to people to delivering 43 to 0 willing to vote for him. And he said, that's when everyone in the room knew at that moment that I wasn't the force for chaos, because remember, they called the 8 the chaos makers, causing chaos, holding things up. And he said, I wasn't the one that was the force for chaos. I wasn't causing disunity for the last 3 weeks. He goes, that reason, or the reason for the House of Representatives, the reason they've been paralyzed is because for his own selfish gain, Kevin McCarthy was sabotaging the candidacy of anyone else because he was plotting a return, and he stopped it. So basically, and in the place of Kevin McCarthy, we got a Bayou, Louisiana Mike Johnson, a brilliant constitutional attorney. So isn't that something, you guys? Isn't that freaking amazing? Like, for him to break that down and come out. And you may say, well, maybe not everything he says is true. Maybe it's exaggerated. Well, to me, it made perfect sense of what's been going on in the stalling and how McCarthy wouldn't even vacated the office. I mean, the simplest of things. So I found that pretty amazing that Matt Gaetz came out with that. Like I said, that's a Gateway Pundit article. Or if you want to go to my community page and you'll see it, you'll see the actual video from War Room of him talking to Bannon about it. And I think that was very, very powerful. So that's what was going on behind the scenes, and they stopped it. Now, as we get on to the next thing here, oh boy, let me see. Who was it that said that? Oh, it was Boo Boo. So like Boo Boo was saying, guess what? Dang, Trump got in trouble again. The judge, Engoron, he put Trump on the witness stand just not long ago, and he fined him $10,000 for violating the gag order. And then he warned him, don't do it again, or it's going to be worse. So it basically stemmed from a comment that Trump was making that the judge thought he made in against his assistant. And remember, he warned him, don't go against my assistant. You have a gag order. You can't talk about anybody or anything and stuff. And Trump, he put him on the stand, and he said that I was not talking about the assistant. I was actually talking about Michael Cohen. So the next thing you know, NBC News is reporting this, that Engoron stated, I stated the last time that any future violations would be severely punished. Why should there not be severe sanctions for this blatant, dangerous disobeying of a court order? So the Trump's lawyer told the judge that he asked Trump about his remarks, and Trump told him he was referring to Michael Cohen. And so language sometimes is not clear, but this is clear to me, he said, and he'd take the matter under consideration and advisement. That's what the judge said. Well, then he comes back, he puts Trump on the witness stand. He asked him about the remarks that Trump made to the reporters. And Trump said, he asked Trump, were you referring to Cohen during these remarks you made for the reporters? Trump simply said yes. So, President Trump was clearly referring to Michael Cohen, but the far left judge wasn't buying it, and he fined Trump $10,000. So the judge also said this. I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, seriously, he had to put him, he didn't believe him when he said, yeah, it was against Cohen, who was there testifying against him. But he said, first of all, my principal law clerk is very close to me. You and I can see each other, and we are close, but not as close. And there's a barrier between us. So wouldn't that be best, somewhat ambiguous as to whom you were referring, the judge said. As the trier of fact, I find the witness is not credible. So the judge said the witness, Trump, is not credible, and he fined him $10,000 for his little comment because he didn't believe what he had to say, that it was against Michael Cohen. So, I mean, this is crazy. I don't mean to laugh, but it's crazy that here it is. Trump's got in trouble 2 times now. And like I said, the judge said that it is going to be much more severe if he does it again. So we don't want that to happen, do we? Because he was talking about maybe the jail, putting the cuffs on him and stuff. So, oh my gosh. Also, let's see. The other thing I wanted to cover, which broke today as well. You know, I know it, Faia. This judge, I mean, you look at him and he looks like a hot mess. But I mean, I do have to laugh because At this point in time, I don't know how, if everything wasn't so serious and if we weren't saving this country, I don't know how Trump keeps a straight face. I really don't. When you look at what they're doing to him, it's like they're treating him like a toddler. And no matter what he says or does, it's like he's the troublemaker in class. He's always finding trouble. These people just don't like him. They don't like him at all. And you have to ask yourself why. Why do you despise this man so much? And it's so many people, and some of them are the same people that were up in his business in the early days when he had a TV show and was making that network tons of money. Also, when he was a businessman and they needed something from him and he could promote them. You look at all these different candidates that when he endorses them, how they fly from 0 to 1,000, like and it's just funny. And then they turn their backs on him, and then it's like they go and fall into oblivion. I mean, look what is happening to Ron DeSantis. I mean, what's happened to him? He was nothing. He became something with Trump's endorsement, and now he's fallen way down. They thought he was going to be a challenger for 2024. And now he's, I think, dropped to third place, possibly fourth by now. And you just have to laugh because it's like they're going against him for the wrong reasons. And like when Matt Gaetz and this other representative said about Mike Johnson, that he's in this for the right reasons, that he does have a true heart. He's not bought, sold, and paid for. Obviously that can change, but I'm praying and hoping that it doesn't. I'm thinking this and praying this is the change that we need to get the business of we, the citizens, in order again. But it seems like when you're not in it to win it for the right reasons, don't you always get exposed eventually? Don't you think that cookie starts crumbling apart eventually? And that's what seems to be happening, because can you imagine how angry so many of these people are that are trying to take him down and haven't succeeded yet? I mean, he just keeps going like the Energizer Bunny, and the man's 70 some years old, and he just keeps going, and he looks great. I mean, how many presidents go into office looking one way and they come out looking way worse? Like, what the heck happened to you in that office for 4 years or whatever? Trump, after all he's been through, and he still looks great. He's still got that hair that people like to make fun of. He still looks tan, no matter what kind of shade you think the tanning is. And it just makes me laugh at this point anyways. Faye, I agree with you. I agree with that. Imagine some serious goods. Oh, yes, exactly. So yeah, you guys. So the last thing I want to talk about here is Attorney General Ken Paxton of Texas. This is a little bit of good news too. This was just breaking a little bit earlier. He's suing the Biden administration, and you ask why? For removing the razor wire placed at the Texas southern border to avert illegal immigration. So Ken Paxton has gone to task, and he's suing the Biden administration, and he's got support behind it because remember, we were having conversations about the man's trying to protect his state and the people of his state, the citizens right along that border. And we talked about how Biden's administration sent people and said, you need to cut that down and allow these people to roam free and get through there. So now Ken Paxton standing up, standing out, and he's suing the Biden administration. And that should prove very interesting. And I know that we've been beat up and we've been hopeful for a long time and nothing's happened. But I really believe today with what happened in the House and how that came out of nowhere, I think that was a mighty, mighty blow to some of these elitist and some of these people that have been in power for such a very long time that really just didn't have our best interest at heart. And you look at the condition of the country, and that goes without saying. That's no longer just right versus left. It's either pro-America or anti-America. I think that's the level that we've gotten at. And it is just really refreshing to just see some of these people really coming out and staying in the fight, just like we have to do. Hey, Lily J. You know what, Faye, Trump is major with that. Like he'd be the kid in class that you'd want to knock out, and you go to knock him out, and he'd just go back and you go flying and you make a fool out of yourself in front of everybody. There's just some people that, really, I believe this. I believe if you do things God led from your heart, and you're going to face you're going to face feedback, and you're going to face bad things for that. But when God's got your back, I don't think there's anybody that can stand against you and win in the long term, is there? God's not going to let his people or his country or this world go any other way than he's going to allow it to go, because he is the controller of all. And I think that the prayers and all the action that we have taken have made a big improvement. I know that a lot of people did call their representatives, and they were voicing their opinions. And I talked about this a couple times, how one voice has the power of 100. If we take action, they understand that we want done what we want done. And that when we vocalize and we stand up and we educate each other and we bond together and unify, they can't stand against us. The ones that aren't for us, that are against us, are going to fall. And I'm really believing that's what's happening. So because I was stepping back and I'm going, and I'm sure you guys were too, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I have been paying attention to this House vote and all the things that people were saying, and how they could say something in the morning and then do a behind the scenes meeting, and then we have somebody else in there. None of it was making sense at all. It's almost like everybody was talking out of both sides of their mouth, and it almost seemed like a well laid out plan to me. It may sound crazy, but it's no crazier than what we just went through. So like I said, do your due diligence. Yeah, Fahia, probably he's reminding us, just going to surprise us. So I'm going to suggest that you guys check into Mike Johnson. Just look at different videos. Just Google his name, because I'm sure that he's one of the most Google names at this point in time, and find out what the heck he is about. And remind yourselves of the fire that we all had when things were going against Mr. T with all the impeachment stuff. And then we kind of, when all that went away and they kept attacking, and the Bidens and everybody's getting away with stuff, we kind of hit this low and this lull. And then with the House going on, it was another hit and a lull. Then with Israel and Ukraine and all that, then we hit another lull. But I think this is the beginning of the forward motion for this country, and for all of us to keep working hard, moving forward together as a community. Definitely. Oh, and a last little bit of tid that I forgot to cover, because there's not much on it, but it just came out. Gavin Newsom is in Beijing meeting with President Xi of China. So there's video out there of him and President Xi shaking hands and hanging out. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And he's all smiles and happy. And a lot of people are saying, does the president know about that or not? And we remember that the president just went to meet leaders in Israel and stuff, and he couldn't get anybody to meet with him. But yet here's Gavin Newsom breaking the internet with pictures of him over there with President Xi. And we wonder why. Some are saying, is this the beginning of the flipping of, the Democrat nominee to run for 2024? Is he trying to do bids? Is he trying to make friends? Is he going to take a run for this? So that's, like I said, that can be hearsay and gossip at this point. It's allegedly. All we have from it is people's opinions about it. There's nothing ingrained in sand or written in stone yet. But basically, that was an interesting visual that I saw just before going on as well. So, all right, that's all I have for this afternoon, you guys. I may be back later this evening and do another show. I may be with LW on LWN 6. Mike he mentioned that if he is able, he wants to do a show and talk tonight together. So if you see me, it will be over there on Liberty Warrior Nation 6. I hope you guys can join me. It's always good when we can have good conversations all together and just unify and have a good time. But I definitely wanted to come on now and get everybody updated. I couldn't wait, paying attention and watching all of this develop today. I'm telling you, this was an interesting one. This was a good time. Between last night and today was a good time and a relief. So love you guys. I will talk to you soon. And in the meantime, stand strong. We got this. We've got some forward momentum. Do your research, find out about Mike Johnson, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Okay, I'll talk to you soon, you guys. Love you. Bye-bye.